gentlemen, welcome back to the MaxBet podcast, a podcast dedicated to gaming.
We're your hosts. I'm here with Landon Michael Jones, and I'm Mike McKiskey. Let's get started.
Let's roll. What's up, gangster?
What is up?
I just wanted to call you gangster.
That's one way to do it.
Welcome back.
Thanks, man.
Welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
I was. It's funny. I was dragging today. Like I just tired. Right?
You get a Red Bull in front of you. I never see you rocking.
It was funny.
Bulls,
I told Randy who works here. Right. I told her. Hey, I got to fire down Red Bull and get after it. She just starts. She's like, you're an idiot. I go, I know, but that's how I'm doing it today.
Do you think it's because we said that this morning?
I think that's why I needed it.
That maybe it
I planted a seed 2 hours ago.
You manifested the fact that you were going to be tired and.
I was tired in that meeting, so I think more than anything, it was more just like, bang, $3.99, whatever it was, $2.99.
Now you know how much Red Bulls
In Nevada.
go
That's
for
the
at
inflation
the L&W studio.
L&W studio, that's right.
Yeah.
We're here. This is still cool to me. I mean, I'm sure it'll be cool for as long as we're doing this, right? But this is it's a fun room.
Different studio, but you know what I love? I love that the wood table's still with us.
Table remains.
Yeah.
Well, if you watch now, like a lot of the not mainstream, but like some of the bigger, they all have
A
this
cool
vibe.
table.
Yeah.
You need a cool
Table's
table.
kind of important.
It's like, number one, when people call me and they're like, I'm starting a podcast, what do I need? I say, you need a cool table and a microphone.
Yeah. So, oh man. So, okay. So I'm going to ask you a question. So how grateful are you that when we were children, there were no smartphones? Like for cameras and stuff. Like, are you happy about that? Sad about that? I'll tell you why I'm asking that in a minute, but I'm just going to ask you the blank question to start.
I think there's benefits to both sides, right?
Yeah.
I feel like as a kid, we were more present because we had to be.
Yeah, there was no no iPad to distract you.
Yeah, you couldn't be distracted. We had more of like an outdoorsy upbringing. I grew up in the mountains, so we were out building forts, playing tag, kickball.
We did a lot of that in the city, though, too. Yeah, so it's all good,
so I'm grateful for that experience.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, what does the phone bring kids these days, right?
Nothing.
They have like a ton of games, distractions.
Yeah.
The other positive thing about it is information, right? They're getting information at light speed. For us to get information, we had to go to a library, or our father had to teach us, or mother had to teach us, or school, right? Now, if they want to learn something, boom.
Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah,
Google
kids will learn how to code at like
whatever
4.
program they're looking at is accurate, right? Because now it's all the era of fake news. But no,
Why you bring this up?
Yeah, so I don't know what that accent was. You should apologize to somebody.
So speaking of technology and iPads and all this stuff that these kids have access to now, do your kids have access to that?
Limited, but yes.
Okay.
So we do kind of, I say we. My wife should get all the credit, but we've set it up where it's like 2 hours a day, all at once.
Yeah.
So they don't get it sporadically. It's like you get it at this designated time. They have a learning program. They have to complete like a certain number of lessons, which is, call it an hour. And then the next hour, it's quote unquote free for all, but they can't access almost anything. So it's all, approved shows and apps that are games that are age appropriate. Like they couldn't just go on the open internet and like Google murder or something great. Like they'd have to it's all controlled.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you held the line because I remember having that conversation with my sister when she was pregnant and my nephew, who's the oldest nephew or niece that I have, who's 7.5. She said, absolutely not will my kids ever have a cell phone or an iPad. Yeah. They're going to be reading. We're going to be very strict on this, right? This policy. As soon as that kid could hold an iPad, she's like, go away. Here's an iPad. Get out of my hair.
I get it. Like that's the hard part, right? And this is where I would have probably been on that myself. Like, so that's what I say.
I need space. Here's my phone.
I outkick the coverage here, right? Like I married up in this regard. So it's like, that's where she understands. Master of education. She hates me talking about her, by the way. But like, so she's got all these things and she goes, listen, it's just not healthy. It's not healthy. Like, get outside, be creative. There's a lot of pros to being outside, right? Not just sunshine and physical activity, but your mental creativity, your imagination is there. Depending on what they're doing on the device, you could argue it's a little different. But if what you're doing is plugging in like, I don't know, My Little Prince and My Little Pony show and just watching that, believe me, it's not bad, right? Go to the land of Equestria. But anyway, so like if you're doing that and they're just zombieing out, that's not helping them at all. If it's one of those where you're going like, I know, we're not all the way into this, but there's like Minecraft. We have to like build things and you're thinking about, right? Less offensive. but just to zombie them out on the show is not great. However, when you kids throwing a fit, especially in a public restaurant, and you want to just go, hey, dude, could you just not embarrass me for 2 hours? Like just watch
or a plane.
It's so tempting. Yeah. So like that's where we're probably the most lenient. Road trips, planes, but yeah, no, generally we stay
How do you
screen
think
free.
that affects us as adults today? So like even in the workplace, like how many people out there right now are just scrolling aimlessly through Instagram or
Hopefully,
Facebook?
well, certainly all the people that are liking our posts, right? So like it's like a plus and a
This is
minus.
an educational tool, so you're doing a good job.
Yeah, you're doing what you can. We try to teach you things.
But it also helps, right? Like answering emails and being quick on the fly.
Well, that's the balance, right? And I feel like this elusive balance is everyone's trying to find it across everything. Like how much am I on my phone versus not? How much am I working versus not? Am I eating right? Like there's just trying to quote unquote balance everything. So I don't know. Like the phone's great. Like I think you would argue we're better for it than without it. But there's a danger to it too, right? So I don't know.
Pluses and minuses to everything.
Pros and cons, man. Moves and counter.
Who do we have today, bro?
You want to learn something?
I do.
We have Ari Mizrahi.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I
practiced a few times. Yeah. I was like, he says it. He demos it and gives a different joke about it. But yeah, no. So Ari Mizrahi, he's a senior vice president of kind of like sales and customer success for Tangam. So Tangam, data analytics type of company, recommendation engines. Tables is where they started, then moved into slots. So he's got a lot of good insights. But he was everything. He was a dealer. He ran the casino. I mean, he ran the gamut. So he knows a lot. And it's fun. It's why I asked him, come on, because we were chatting and I go, man, every time I talk to him, he just starts hitting me with like facts and information. Did you know this? And what about that? And this was the latest trend we discovered. And I'm like, yo, like I got to bottle this. How do I bottle this up? Right. And so I was like, you know what we do? We record it. So yeah, he's coming in. He's a stud and he has a good conversation.
Well, should we get into it?
Let's do it. Here's Ari.
Let's rock and roll.
Boom.
Here we are. Welcome to the MaxBet podcast. We appreciate you dropping by the Light and Wonder Studio.
Light and Wonder Studio. Yeah, man. Thanks for swinging over. Here, Ari Mizrahi, Senior VP of everything for Tangam. not to overstate it, but you're kind of running a lot of the commercial, it seems like, kind of sales and accounts and whatnot.
Yeah. Responsible for all our North America business sales, client success, product roadmap stuff.
But before we get into that, fun fact about old Ari here.
Yes.
Professional highlight player.
Okay, so you kind of mentioned that
offline. Yeah, exactly.
And I have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
So
teach us highlight. Yeah. He was a pro. He has no idea.
I would say it's racquetball on steroids.
Okay.
So real brief history on highlights. Started in the Pyrenees Mountains in the border of Spain and France. So it's kind of like mountainous region. A bunch of cavemen-esque kind of guys created this sport thousands of years ago. It's big wicker basket. Same rules as racquetball. Court's 180 feet long, 50 feet wide. Ball travels about 150 miles an hour.
That's the part I knew.
Yeah. Ball's as hard as a cue ball. It's not as dangerous as people say because the court is so big. At the professional level, it's not as scary. How did I get into it?
Did you grow up in the Pyrenees Mountains or something? Like, how does one child just pick up?
Are you a caveman?
I was gonna say because like I knew the only reason I've even heard of Jai Alai. So one of my best friends growing up, his dad was a former Jai Alai player. Like they grew up in the Miami area, and so it was a big thing. And so I go, all I knew, that sport sounds insane because you're in a kind of a small space, whipping a ball around 100, 150 miles an hour. So. But how'd you get into that?
So I guess it starts with like my life because to lead to Jai Alai, there's so much backstory. Right?
Sure.
Grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Come from a family of gamblers. I learned how to read the racing form before I learned how to read.
Nice.
As you do.
Right. What else would you do?
That's how you learned. Yeah.
You want to understand analytics? Learn how to read a racing form, and then you'll be a great analyst.
See, biscuit? What is this? Yeah.
So anyway, we moved to South Florida when I was 13 years old, and Jai Alai is a sport that you bet on. You bet on it just like any horse race or dog race or whatever. And because my dad was such a big gambler, when we moved there, I was 13. He's like, "Let's go to Jai Alai." I'm like,
sure.
Well,
what is that?
What is Jai Alai? Right, I was a baseball kid, right? So it's a facility where it's like going to a night to any kind of horse track. Back in the day, this is 1992, it would have anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000 people a night watching. Because you could bet on it, right? So think about betting on any sport.
So how many of the 10,000 are betting? Like most of those guys are there because they're either your family or they're betting, or in this case, both.
You're only going there if you're gambling.
For gambling, got it. Okay.
So I mean, back in South Florida, lottery, pre-cable, any other gambling. At night, you went to Jai Alai.
Is that still happening?
It's kind of dead. We can talk about it later on. But the gaming dollar has been too stretched for Jai Alai.
Yeah.
But I walked into the facility the first time. Again, I was a baseball player, and I absolutely fell in love.
Interesting.
And I grew up in. We moved to North Miami Beach, Florida, about 20 minutes south of the Hard Rock, which I'm sure you guys have visited.
Yeah, for sure.
And Jai Alai was a thing, and I went and watched, and then I did some homework, found a place that you could learn, an amateur facility.
Sure.
And I became infatuated. I played every day as an amateur from 13 to 16 and a half. And at that point, I was one of the better amateurs in the United States, and I was offered a contract. So I was in my senior year of high school, and I played from 1996 to 2004.
Wow.
And it was cool, like, having 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people on a Friday, Saturday night screaming your name, telling you you're the worst person in the world because they bet on you.
Yeah, and you
dropped
you
the
biffed
ball.
it. Yeah,
and,
whatever.
It's fixed because you dropped the ball and all that kind of
You
stuff.
never drops that one.
Yeah.
Is that like a lucrative sport?
I was going to ask you, yeah.
associated with?
No, I mean, so it's just, it was built around pari-mutuel wagering. So if you go to Spain, it's like watching a tennis match, right? It's either a singles match or a doubles match. It's a couple-hour match and whatever. But when it came to the United States, it came for gambling. And people's attention spans today are of a snail, but back then was a little bit longer. So each match lasted about 15 minutes. There'd be 8 teams in a game, round robin. Whoever gets 7 points first wins, and then whoever's second is place, and whoever's third is show. So it was really fast and all fast moving in that. So I fell in love. I turned pro. I traveled Florida. At the time, I think there were probably 9 facilities all across Florida that had them. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Tampa. It was a big thing. And I was blessed to do what I absolutely loved. Was it lucrative? No, it was not lucrative.
We're going to talk about his job in a minute, so you got a sense of that.
No, it was not like... But, when you're able to do something that you love, money doesn't matter. I come from very humble upbringing, so it didn't matter much anyway.
Yeah.
But I think my salary was like $2,000 a month. And if I had a really good month, I made another $2,000 in what they call prize money. So if I won games and whatnot.
Sure.
But it wasn't for the money. We played 10 hours a week. Got to do what we loved. I got to playing right outside of Gainesville, Florida, where Florida is. So Wednesday night college night when you're 19, 20 years old and there's a bunch of colleges coming to watch you. It was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah.
I know you would never do this, but I have to ask. Were you ever approached to throw a match with one of these 20,000 people watching you?
Well, you are one of 7 million that have asked me that question.
Yeah. And the answer is still, I cannot comment.
No, so it's funny. So you asked about the sport. When I turned professional, the sport was already on its decline.
Yeah.
Money is made by how much money is wagered, and at the time, there just wasn't much money left being bet on Jai Alai.
Yeah.
Why? There were offshore casinos, there was lottery, there were all these casinos growing up, popping up all over the place. Seminoles had their
you mentioned
bingo
Hard
halls.
Rock, sure.
So it was just like, and Jai Alai, to bet on it, you bet on a game, you have to wait 15 minutes to find out the result. People. They play your slot machines. They know instantly, right?
Yeah.
You press a button and you know. So that's what lost its allure. But to the point is, when you see people, you assume fixing, right?
Yeah.
There's no money in the sport, right? I mean, I made $50 when I won a game. There was like $150 bet total in the whole pool, right? There's no. So I was never approached. Well, I believe in the 70s and 80s, I'm assuming players got approached. But frankly. Maybe 5% of the players were American.
Yeah.
Most of them were Spanish and French.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm so proud of becoming a Jai Alai player is when I was an amateur, the owner of the facility said, Ari, you're too short, you're too fat, and you're too Jewish.
Oh,
wow.
You're never going to play pro. And I'm like, what do you mean? I can understand the first two, which were true.
What is the last part after? Yeah, right.
But the thing is, it's a sport of where players, the game was dominated from where the players came from. They were the best players in the world. And basically he was saying, hey, you're an outsider. And an outsider is just not going to get a job. Plus, you're not like one of these great athletes, whatever. And he told me that at 14. And I was like, you know what? I'll prove you wrong. I played every day of my life, every day until 16 and a half. And I got a contract. So they never got rich doing it, but it's my proudest moments.
But you did it. Yeah. Tell that guy where to put it. Yeah, that's good.
It's the best motivator.
I was going to say, you two are starting to see some commonalities, right? Yeah.
Someone tells you can't do it, and you're like, watch this.
Watch this. Stand. Sit right there. I'll be back.
When I transferred from poker to table games, that's what people said, like, you're a poker guy. You'll never understand table games. I'm like, you know what? I'll prove you wrong.
Yeah, it's weird because like I think in the casino business, there's so much nuance between the two. Outside looking in, you're going, what do you mean they're both table games? Right? Like you would just go, same thing, right? So I'm kind of picking that open. What was the biggest difference? Like when you're looking at taking that leap and going, okay, so what'd you have to learn first? Like what was the biggest thing that you go, okay, now that I'm stepping up?
It's funny. I think coming from the redheaded stepchild of departments in casinos.
Is poker that stepchild? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I've never worked. So it's transparency. I've always been on the vendor side. So I've not done the.
You're fairly irrelevant, right? Just from the thing about revenue, of gaining revenue. Not talking about food and beverage and hotels. Like it's slots, it's tables, and what's that generates this much
Those
money?
guys in there clapping on each other.
At that point.
And there's a lot of employees, and there's headaches and all that. But when you do, and I've been very fortunate. I opened up 6 poker rooms in my career at different levels. You're a one-person leader, right? You have to be the marketing manager. You have to be the HR department. You have to be the payroll person. You have to know how to write rules and submissions. When you move over to the table game side, there's a lot of people doing a lot of things.
Sure.
So it was actually easier. The hardest part was just getting the credibility from the staff. Because when I became a director of tables, I was 31 years old.
Sure.
Many of the people that worked for me were in the business more than 31 years.
Right.
So that's not an easy task. But
like you're the boss now?
Right. Who do you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
How good is your golf game?
Yeah. Not good, but my Jai Alai game's off the charts.
That's right.
How did you overcome that in terms of like having all these people betting against you?
Yeah, it's similar to my highlight career, right? Like once I find something that I love, I want to know everything about it. And I learned that table games is not that complicated. It's scary for a lot of leadership looking down on it, but it was about understanding all the games. Now, you could say good or bad. I have always had the foundation where my dad was a big gambler.
Yeah, right.
My grandfather was a big gambler. I was born to be in this industry. So it's not like I had this naive approach to another department. Right. But prior to going to table games, when I worked for Harrah's Entertainment at the time, Caesars now, they threw me into a marketing job for a year, right? Talking about a complete fish out of water.
Yeah, right.
So I've learned that you have to learn to be comfortable in really uncomfortable situations in your career, and as long as you're comfortable in that, you can learn anything.
Right.
Well, our company now is in the slot space. 3.5 years ago, we didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
I'm really comfortable because over the last 3 years, I've dedicated my career to learning slots.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
So it's just about that, right? When somebody realizes that you're going to put in more work than they would ever dream about, then you get almost the respect over time.
You've earned it. That's like the whole earning it program now.
You mentioned that the table games business is easy, right? And you're talking brick and mortar operations. And now you're kind of in the vendor space, Tangam, where you guys create systems that track table game play, which I would argue is one of the hardest things to do within the business of tracking players.
Sure.
So is that piece difficult, or do you still feel like that piece is easy?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example of why that piece is difficult. So when table game management systems, i.e. your ACSE product or table view product, hit the floor, supervisor was like, wait a second, I used to do this on pencil and paper.
Right.
Like, why do I need this computer to track play? And I think in anything in life, it's all about the why behind you're doing what you do. So our software, one of the components of our table game software is a real-time component to spit out recommendations to the floor. Hey, it's really busy in blackjack, you should raise some tables. Hey, it's really slow, you should close some tables. Things like that. All that's coming from these table management systems. And prior to using our software, nobody cared what was entered in those systems.
Sure.
Who cares? Accounting? Who cares? Marketing? Who cares? The VP? But the pit manager on the floor, they're managing and leading with their mind, their heart, their soul, their 30 plus years.
Yeah, it's
experience.
really intuitive, is what I was going to say. It feels like this is one of those. Well, I've been doing this 31 years. I know when to raise the limit, move a game, right? Now you have data.
Yeah, so our software forces kind of better data. Why? How? Well, a recommendation comes out. Hey, raise some tables. It's really busy. Pit manager looks and goes, I could shoot a cannonball through this place and not hit anyone.
Not hit a single player. Yeah.
Why is Tangam saying to raise a table? Well, it's because your supervisor has all the ratings still lit up, yet there's no customers.
Got it.
So it's all about when I worked for a company, we had an acronym, WIFM, what's in it for me. And I think whenever you ask an employee to do something, you have to explain why.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it, they're just not going to do it.
That's just a good rule in life. Across
right,
the board. Yeah, but you're for sure explain the why. So yeah, that's All right, so before we get I still want to get into Tangam, but before we get into like the real meat of it all.
Got it.
What is Tangam? Like what does that mean? Like Tangam, the name, does it stand for something? Is it like the owner's initials smushed together? Like I keep saying it over and over. I'm like, it's not obvious to me. If it was a license plate, I would have no idea what it means.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so our founder struggled with finding a company name.
Yeah.
And got frustrated on finding that company name in 2004, and he used his what I understand is his I think his mom's or grandmom's surname, which is Tangam.
Okay.
Our owners of Indian descent, and it means gold.
Oh, perfect.
So it has nothing to do with gaming related.
Well, hey, gold is pretty cool though. So like,
I could turn it to you guys. Talk about Light and Wonder. No,
well, we could. I wasn't in the room for that, but it's
so a lot of times company names just don't have any reference to what you're actually doing, but in the end it makes sense, I guess.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, I'm more surprised with Light and Wonder, not as a name, but that we could, because one of the first things you look at is, can we trademark the name?
Yep.
So Tangam, I mean, intuitively I go, well, of course you can, because who the hell's ever heard of that, right? Now, if I was of Indian descent, I'd be like, well, that just means gold. It's a normal word. But here, like Light and Wonder are two words that are just common English words, right? So they're typically not going to be able to get that protection. So we were able to, obviously. But yeah, that's why I asked, because I'm like, maybe it was just one of those, like, well, that website was available, so I just went with it, right? So I didn't know, but yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and our company didn't start with a product that you probably know of. Our company started with a product called Card Track, and our founder had a background in optical engineering, and I guess a couple conversations during college was like, how can we use, being in optical engineering, how can we use surveillance cameras to gather useful information to give back to the casino to make changes, because historically casinos were scared of data, right? It was kind of pencil and paper kind of business, and did really well. Why do you need to worry about data, even though the world's evolved, right?
Sure.
So we started in 2004, 2005 with a product called Card Track, where we had some Southern California properties where we, on a blackjack table, would actually use the surveillance cameras to look at occupancy, how fast the dealers were dealing, if they made mistakes or not. But ultimately, one of the biggest advantages was understanding the player's house advantage. So in some markets where blackjack is highly competitive, they offer really good games back to the customer.
Yeah, right.
So like in Southern California, you could play a game at like 0.38 or something. Edge, it's relatively nothing, right? So when you have a game that is so attractive to the player, you have to be worried about that reinvestment, right? So I'm assuming, Landon looks like a really smart guy. Mike, I'm not sure. So Mike,
Agreed.
So Landon,
We always get the opposite, actually, but I'll take it this time. Yeah.
So Landon might play perfect basic strategy, and he's worth 0.38% for the game. And then when you play blackjack really, really poorly, you could have as high as a 5.7 plus advantage. So think about that, gap.
Huge.
But yet
It's
you're
massive.
both playing at the same game, so how did it work day? I have to run you down, try to figure it out, maybe put it in BJ survey, put it in Bloodhound, try to figure out what Mike was worth, trying to figure out what Landon was worth. This was a way to automate it and to take the manual task out of it.
Yeah.
And they usually just use the standard edge of blackjack, single deck,
Theoretical,
1%.
Yeah, they'll add like a 1% fluff rate of the common Joe that makes mistakes, right? So whatever house edge is plus 0.8% is usually the number. But that's not ever, the average of averages is never the right answer. It's just an average.
Yeah.
So that was a way of doing it. But, the economy crashed, as you guys know. Cameras back then were different than they are today. There's still some YouTube videos that show it. This was way before my time. I think I was just out of college. So, this was a long time ago. But we transitioned because we realized as a company that operators were collecting a lot of useful data already.
Yeah.
But they weren't using it to make business decisions.
Sure.
They were using it to comp their customers. They were doing it for accounting purposes. But they weren't using it to, which game should I open? What should they be priced at? When should I open them? Do I have the right games on the floor? And we realized that all the rich data they were collecting through these systems was, well, we could create an optimization tool, TIM, which is what our product is called, TYM, Table Game Yield Management. And that's what we do. We help clients offer the right games at the right price at the right time, using their intuition, using all their knowledge, and using our software as kind of the validation of all that. Because today, someone's like, oh, I could do it just by walking the floor. But if you ask 10 managers their idea of what the optimal strategy for pricing is, you're going to get 10 different comments. And when you're at a high level, you need consistency in running your business.
Yeah. Would there be, in those 10 different answers, would they be right 10 times out of 10? Or would 5 of those guys be wrong? You go, listen, here's what you don't see. Or I'm just wondering how unique is each spot? Like, is it just like, well, down here in South Florida, the tables deal is wholly different than Vegas or Atlantic City, or is it kind of like, not really, guys? When you zoom out a little, it's all the same.
So it's a good question. So I would say no, right? And one of the reasons I still work for the company is that I learn something new every day, right? I didn't think I'd be with Tangam as long as I am, but I absolutely am blessed to have a platform to do what I love.
Sure.
But so every one of our clients, we're in 90, maybe 80 some odd U.S. casinos, 120 plus across the country. Globally, 9 countries, whatever. Every client has a different model. Why? Because the customers tell us where the optimal kind of target of a game is, right? How, like, guys the size of me will not play at a full table. Why? Because it's just not 100%. It's just not comfortable. Yep. But there are some markets where the ideal number of players at a $25 BJ game is 3. In some markets it's 2. In some markets it's 2.5. The customers are telling us where they peak at time on device.
Yeah.
Based on, and typically the occupancy drives their behavior. Right? There's some markets where they want to play at a more full game. There's other markets where they just want to play heads up with a dealer. And all that rich data that they're collecting educates the casino and educates us as what is ideal.
Yeah, I am definitely not the heads up versus the dealer guy. I
always
feel like speed is not the. I somehow feel, and I know it's just an illusion, that it's less lucky for me. I'm like, every time, it's like that. What's the guy in Chevy Chase when he's just him, and it's like the rivalry. I'm like, this guy's just squirrely, and he's getting me every time. Whereas when it's a couple of people, I feel like the more social a table, I know this is all just like hokum or whatever, right? But I'm like, we're all having a good time. Somehow the cards seem to flow a little better, right? When it's just you and me, I'm going to lose in 10 minutes and be out of here. So
yeah, that's right. And
so I wouldn't be good for that market.
No, and I think that's exactly right. Every customer plays differently based on their experiences, and we can guess at what the right number is, but you're one data point in understanding what the model is supposed to be.
Yeah, and millions of players.
Right.
What data are you not capturing now that you wish you could capture? Like, what has been a challenge in terms of like technology-wise? What are you not capturing that you wish you could?
Yeah, I mean, I think the holy grail for any tables operator, and it's funny, my boss, who's our president, kind of always educates me. But so when I was at Park, so my casino career we could talk about at some point. But my last job, I was in charge of table games, poker, and player development at Parks, which is a casino right outside of Philly. I was infatuated as being that new table games leader from poker to table games. Like, I need to know every bet on the table. RFID is the way to go. Yeah. So we as a company were willing to partner with 3 vendors to kind of make it all work and happen, because at that time there was nothing in the United States that could remotely happen. And unfortunately the vendors couldn't get together. When I came to Tangam, my boss asked me, he's like, Ari, that sounds great. Like, knowing that Landon bet $75 this hand and $60 last hand and $80 the next hand and $95 a hand after that. It's like, that's great to know. He's like, well, what would you do with it? And I never asked myself that question as an operator. So the ROI conversation with a lot of RFID optical solutions is, well, you'll be able to comp Landon the right number.
That's what I was going to say. I'd assume it was your player development hat at that point going, well, he's getting credit for accurate bets, not.
Correct. But then the question is, are you willing to invest more if you realize that Landon is worth more to you? Now, I don't know about you, but most of the CFOs I worked for were not CFOs. They were CFNOs. Right? So it's like, hey, we realize that we're undervaluing our customers. We want to raise our reinvestment by 12%. Why? Because, we realize that Landon's worth more. And they would be like, get out of the office.
Yeah, leave now. Yeah,
right. Smoking a heater.
So if you're not willing to adjust based on understanding the value of your customers, then what's the point of having it?
Yeah. So not to side with the old CFNO there, but like, is it one of those where you say, look, if we're reinvesting 10% across the board, whatever the number is, and Landon's getting shortchanged, because he's whatever, and I'm maybe getting, but the other side of that coin is I might be getting too much, right?
That's
if you're
correct.
just using 2 guys, so is there a world where this could go, well, okay, yeah, you're not going to get the overall number higher, but the sub guys may get right size. And is there any value in that?
I think so. I just think it's a huge risk when you're in a competitive market. Right, because Mike is still profitable.
Yeah, and the next guy's 20 minutes down the road.
Right.
Yeah.
So you used to get your steak, and now you're getting rump roast.
Is that a downgrade?
Are you going to be okay with eating rump, even though you still lose $500 when you go? We learned, Mike, that you played every fifth hand and not every hand. So now you're getting the rump roast.
Just say rump roast one more time. Yeah, no, it's good. You got downgrade. No, I get your point, right? Because I'm the guy that's like, well, wait a minute, I lost my privilege or whatever my perk was, or it got downgraded. Yeah, I guess.
And that's why the iGaming space is great in that realm, right? You know every bet.
Yeah.
And you know why you're getting and why you're not getting and all that. And the table game space, I think that's why I transitioned from a lot of a table games dominant gaming industry to slots started dominating. Well, hey, when I put a player's card in a slot machine, I know everything.
Yeah. Everybody.
Table games has always been, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, we're trusting
Landon's
this
saying
guy.
he's worth $1,000 a trip, but he only loses $300 every time he comes. You sure he's not like a good player?
Yeah, right.
Well, Landon plays roulette. Well, you can't play roulette good, but anyway.
Yeah, right.
This is the conversation that we have. Would digital tables solve that, right?
Right.
You would have the ability, obviously, to track every bet. You'd have the almost zero errors, other than maybe like software errors, which are fixable in the future. So the question is now is like, in the future, do you think chips will be a thing of the past? Like in 20 years, do you think we'll be reading in a casino 101 class? Like they used to have chips on a table.
You'll walk in with a chip and they'll go, what is that? Like it's fast and like mind blowing to these guys.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So your company or many companies before it became Light and Wonder had a really interesting product that we debuted at Parks when we launched in 2010. You guys used to call it like iGames.
iTable.
So this is when it was iTable.
Yeah, or like Rapid Roulette was one for the roulette form factor. Yeah, it's in the history books here.
We had some BJ. I think we had 4 BJ games and 2 3-card poker games, and it's exactly what you're saying. I think the game was before its time.
For sure.
The reason why I say that is that side bet penetration is through the roof.
Now.
Yeah. And that's what really slows down a game. It's a huge high house edge game. You want players to play it, but it's like it slows it down. So, again, Landon's a blackjack purist. You can't get enough action on every side bet.
Yeah, side bet Sammy.
But when you do that,
side bet Sammy.
Right, side bet Sammy. Yeah. But the guy like Landon, like I'm a purist, right? When I play, I never play any of that stuff. But if you're like going bonkers, I'm like, man, this is a really terrible experience because he's putting $1 on everything.
Yeah, and then she's got to calculate it all or whatever. Yeah, right.
But in 10, side bets were starting to become a thing. And then side bets were there before that, but now you go to some markets, it's like they don't even care about blackjack anymore.
Yeah, right.
So now, like if the iTable makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah.
Now there were some game integrity issues that maybe we all didn't think about when we launched it, because there's still some gaps of me and Landon are friends. I'm the dealer, Landon's the player. You give me a $100 bill, but I give you 500 in credits.
That's been almost everything that we've introduced into the table games business.
Right.
Shufflers. Before, we don't need shufflers. Right. Now every table has a shuffler.
Right.
Side bet, now every table has a side. Same with progressives, right? It's up to us as the operator, the vendor, supplier, to condition the players to the newest, latest, and greatest technology. And it's up to us to do that.
So I think I think if you're a player, like if you're a player on the main floor, you're playing your $15, $25, $10 BJ games, and you love side bets, I think you'd have a better experience at an iTable. Just based on what I said.
Or an ETG.
But if you're a purist and you're a guy or gal that just likes to play BJ and doesn't care about that stuff, I mean, the chips are the sexy part of our industry, right? There's articles written about like touching the chips and the endorphins that are released and all that stuff. Like that's why people still play traditional games. I mean, I live in New Jersey. I can go to Atlantic City gamble, or I could sit on my couch and bet on my phone and play Evolution's blackjack games.
It's interesting then to see, so like it's interesting to see though now. So like you talk normal default is players. What do the players want to see? How are they going to respond? It's starting to feel like in tables now there's some factors that go beyond, right? So you're saying, well, labor is hard to find. Qualified labor is even harder to find. This whole anti-money laundering, I hear it mostly international, but I think that noise is coming here. And so they're going, well, we got to track this better. So maybe it's not an iTable. Maybe it's some other form factor where you go, how are we going to track this? Because if you're coming in with $9,000 in cash, today you don't trip any bells. Maybe if the pit boss sees you pull $9,000 out every 25 minutes, they're going to say something, but there's not a process, right? Because it's 10,000 more. But all of a sudden you could track it. Well, wait a minute. Ari's carded in, or this player, we can start to adding it up, and the system could track, right? And so I wonder whatever the actual product ends up being. Like, I feel like there's more than just the player behavior focus that'll start to influence this, right? Because
I mean, listen, there's value in the responsible gaming aspect. There's value in AML, CTR.
Sure.
I mean, there are procedures in place. Like, so, everything's that happened overseas. When I was an operator at parks, like, it was like, hey, everyone, like, we have to figure out a process. And so most operators, like, once you get to past like a $2,500 threshold, you're starting to track, right? Even if you go to other tables, you're trying to follow and all that stuff. It is kind of ridiculous, but it is also like kind of opening the can of worms of, people that just say to gamble. They're not going to get to 10,000, but now they feel like somebody's like big brothering them, right?
Like, already following me around the building, going, "What's he doing?"
It's like a slippery slope almost. So I mean, everybody talks about cashless, right? And I it makes sense, but how about the person that wants to be anonymous when they gamble, right?
Yeah.
When you go to a bar, do you check in and say, "Hey, make sure you call my wife that I'm going to have 4 beers tonight"? No, you're never going to do that.
No, because when you get home, it's only 2.
Right, right. So it's kind of like the same thing. It's like gaming is an escape, and I don't mean that in any negative way.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
It's an activity where you want to just go enjoy yourself. You don't want to feel like somebody's watching every move. So the problem with cashless is there's a big percentage of our customers that are not rated. And they're not rated for whatever reason. There could be a million reasons why they're not rated. And it's not all bad.
Yeah, right.
Most of it's good reasons.
It's not all shady.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times, like when I'm on, the only place that gets me now is the Borgata. Everywhere else, I don't care if I'm traveling because I'm like, I don't live here. Am I going to sit here long enough to earn even the rump roast, let alone the steak, right? And so it's like, but Borgata goes, well, if you want to make any bet above the minimum, you got to have a card. Right.
That's an Atlantic City thing.
Oh, is it all Atlantic City? I guess maybe more. Maybe I'm just more recently played at Borgata, but
yeah, it's one of those things. Like Atlantic City started that a few years ago, where if you wanted to play multiple hands or you wanted to play above a certain amount, you may card it. And whether it's because of card counters or whether it's like it helps with marketing because now everybody's carded, right?
Yeah,
but maybe you're a guy that just wants to go and spend a few $100s and enjoy yourself. I don't want you to send me a pan flip or come back.
That's what bothers me the most, man. My mailbox is just full of offers.
Well,
I don't want that frying pan.
And I'm certainly not flying across the country to pick it up.
That's right.
Yeah, no, it's true. But it was interesting because I was like, oh, that's a genius way to do it because I'm just going to go, just give me the card because I want to double down. Like in that example, I was like, well, you can bet, I think it's a $25 table. So you bet $25, no problem. Sit here all night. Can't split, can't double, can't do anything else. You have to, if you want to do any of that, give me a card.
Right.
Okay. Didn't have to have any tier points. Just had to get the card. And so I was like, okay. I had one anyway. This is MGM, right? So it's like not a big deal, but it was like, okay.
That was a rule?
That was a rule. Yeah, when we were there 8 months ago, we were just there.
I think every AC casino does it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, look,
so you get better odds if you have a player's card, essentially.
It's not. So again, I don't even and
I don't know if
full
it's
transparency.
Odds,
many of our
more.
many of our clients are there. So I mean, my initial thought, I never actually asked any of the casinos. I'm assuming it's how do we stop card counting?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you got to give me your card. But
because some of the odds are built into doubles and splits, right?
Well, it's really more not even the rules. It's more like if you want to play 2 hands. Like I'm a kind of guy when I play, I want to play 2 hands.
Yeah, right.
Or and I think some of the properties it's the table minimum only.
Right.
Like you can't play. It could be 25 to a 2,000. You're only playing $25, right?
Yeah,
so
without a card.
they're basically, it's forced to use a card if you want to enjoy blackjack. Now that doesn't exist for any of the other games. It's blackjack and blackjack only.
Yeah, to be fair, I guess I didn't notice it on the other tables.
So when I found out it was blackjack only, I'm like, oh, this has to be just to prevent card counting.
Yeah, which makes sense.
The truth is if you go 40 miles up the street, Pennsylvania is forced better odds. So if you're a card counter, you're going to Pennsylvania. You're not going to New Jersey.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
Good to know.
So let's do that. Yeah, that's funny. So circling back to data, I always assumed it was just because the value of the data was probably worth more than the inconvenience of somebody leaving, right? Because to your point, if you're a serious player, I'm gonna play two, 3 spots. I'm gonna double down, whatever the thing is. You're not even gonna blink. Take it. It's fine.
Right.
If you're the one that's leaving, you're either not worth much, meaning you probably weren't going to play that much anyway, or you might be an advantage player that they want out of there anyway. So it's probably just a trade-off. But data feels like maybe not the new currency because that's the wrong way to say it, but it's the value of the future. Like everyone seems, how do I get more data? How do I then use a tool to actually help me understand the data? But
it's a new 4-letter word. Yeah. When you watch like Moneyball, right? And I think sports. I mean, I'm a big sports guy, sports dad, baseball dad. Like sometimes data is too much, and I think that sometimes the industry go from 0 to 100, right? Why wouldn't you want to use it? You're collecting it. right? And the operators are like, I don't believe in data. Well, you believe in it when your bonuses are coming.
Yeah, right.
when you beat your budget by 20% and they gave you your stretch bonus, you believed in data, didn't you?
Really like that. Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's a happy median because our industry, what made our industry great early on and still to today is that soul of a casino operator, understanding the customer experience first. Not only making decisions based on data, right? Like you can make a lot of bad decisions on data alone. So I think it's marrying the experience with, hey, let's validate a lot of the things that you already thought of, or hey, by the way, here's something new to learn. Right. And you get that like light bulb effect and all that kind of stuff.
Well, the new to learn thing is what I wanted to kind of give you guys credit for, I guess, to some degree. So I was poking around the website. You have an entire free to access section of the website that's like all the white papers you've written, all these data findings. So I was clicking around there going, I feel like I'm cheating. Like I'm like, I feel like I should have to pay for these things. Like, so that's kind of an interesting, and what I guess drives you to say, well, look, let's just make it free to all. And then maybe you like it, you call us type of thing, or like how, hey, kudos to you, but why do that?
I mean, it's our mission. It's our founders' kind of mission. Like, there's no secret sauce, right?
Sure.
When people say there's a secret sauce, I'm like, don't hire that guy.
They're trying to sell you sauce.
No secret sauce, right?
Right.
What we provide is our blood, sweat, and tears of what we learned over the last 15, 16 years, 17 years at Tangam, and there's no secrets, right? It's just what we've learned from a casino operator. I'm the lucky one. I get to travel the globe. I mean, I've been to thousands of casinos over the last 7 years, and every casino I go to, big, small, different countries, I learned something new.
Sure.
And we as a company said, you know what, let's just publish it. Because we could try to charge for more consulting services, but that's not the business we're in.
Sure.
Right? We're partners, right? We as a small kind of company that started with a guy with an idea, still have that mentality. Our goal is to be a trusted partner. Right. We pride ourselves on, retention. We pride ourselves on that partnership. We pride ourselves, hey, when you finally get promoted and go to another casino, I know that I might be the first person you call, and that happens often.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Because we didn't, our software, our company doesn't try to upsell. Like, I'll get you in it at the entry level, but then I'm going to try to sell you something down the road.
Sure.
We're none of that. Like, once you partner with us, you're a partner for life.
How does that work with you guys incorporating slots now? So I'm assuming Tangam data partners with whatever other systems, right?
Yep.
Because you're going to want a whole view of your floor. So whether it's Aristocrat, LNW, IGT.
HSC,
But now that you're into the slot side, are they kind of like a little bit more hesitant to work with you as a partner, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, table side, we're the only game in town, right? If you want a dynamic live yield management system, we're the only one that you could partner with. Easy to do that, right? It's either you have it or you don't.
Yeah, right.
On the slot side, there's competition,
sure.
right? I think you guys even had Kieran on the call,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So super smart guy, pretty cool product. But yeah, like there's competition. So, what is helping us as we grow is that all of our trust from before.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, hey, we started something 3.5 years ago. You believed in us all this time in table games. We've hopefully made you more profit, right? Because it's not always about making more money. It's about making more profit, depending on where the economy is and stuff.
Sure.
And it's helped us be that trusted partner. So, it hasn't been a big hurdle with our current clients just trying to say, hey, and the reason why Soda is our slot products.
I was going to say it's not Tim and Sim, because Tim is like the table game. So Tim and Soda.
Soda, yeah. So CODA is slot optimization data analytics. I think, again, our president got frustrated with a name, and somehow we came up with Soda. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
It means platinum. And
But, for us, I deal directly with a lot of the VPs of casino ops. So as the industry's evolved, it used to be, VP of tables, VP of slots, director of tables, director of slots. Well, now it's one guy or gal that is running the, and they, one of our partners in Florida, he's the one that was like kind of pushing me to kind of push to my boss. And he's like, I love what you're doing. When are you going to build a slot product? And I'm like, what do you mean? There's all these other companies.
There's 9 of them. What are you talking about?
Like us. And they're like, no, but you guys are, you guys will do what you got to do to make it right. And we went down that journey. I mean, during COVID, just like every company, we faced the challenge. All of our partners shut down. We have a lot of full-time developers back in our office in Waterloo and in Ontario, Canada. Some of the most talented people I know. And were we going to furlough them like many companies would? And our founder, Prem, and our president, Mullen, were like, let's go all in. Let's build what we've been talking about for the last few years. And all those guys and gals, they went to work and we built Soda. And I'll be honest, I was that table games guy that was like, slots, that's easy. Sure. Boxes with video games. And come on.
How hard could that be?
Anybody could run a slot department and do analysis. And I'm like, holy mackerel, there is way more variables than I thought.
Holy overload. Yeah, exactly.
I embarrassed myself in the first meeting I had with one of our first beta clients. And he was a guy that liked me, table games guy at heart. And he was like, man, you don't know anything about slots, do you? And I'm like, I guess not. So on my 6-hour drive home to Jersey, I was like, I need to learn slots. And I've dedicated 3 years of my life to learning everything there is to know.
Yeah, that's good.
Or at least, everything that I know so far, there's a million more things that I need to learn.
What, so you can pick slots, tables, or one of each if you want, but I'm interested. You say you learn something all the time. Are there any fun facts that jumped out to you in your learnings where you go, like the coffee, like I almost think of the cocktail party stuff. You go, I'm a data guy. Hey, fun fact. Did you know type of stuff? Like, do you have any of those from all your learnings that you queue up when you're throwing them out?
Yeah, well, I guess what I've learned recently in the slot world is loyalty to the game mechanic, right? So these are things that, and you guys might be the slot experts. I'm still learning, but
we're experts in nothing.
Yeah. 15, 20 years ago, you had video poker, you had mechanical reel steppers, and you had digital reels. And that was the floor. And games was segmented by denom, right? It wasn't based on, it was just like, here's your penny zone, here's your nickel zone, here's your quarter zone, here's your dollar zone. Well, you guys and your competitors have gotten extremely, the developers, whoever comes up with game design, they deserve awards. They've created these games with different mechanics.
Sure.
And the different mechanics have different loyalties. So what I learned is like, persistence games, which you guys don't have too much of, but you guys have a lot of perceived like what's your number one?
Sounding like Drano now.
I know. It's
Cash on
get the
reels,
Aussie in here.
Hold and spin.
Yeah.
Persistent.
But you're
like
I'm
Huff
trying
and
to think
Puff
of,
or like,
no, not Huff and Puff. I'm trying to think of perceived persistence, Light and Wonder. It will come to me.
But
great. Perceived persistence, players play way longer on those games than anything else. Why? Well, once you start feeding the pots that have to explode or the firecrackers, whatever it is.
Yeah. So like 88 Fortunes, or Dancing Drums,
once
and those.
You start filling things, you're like, well, I already put 200 in. It's about to pop.
That pot's almost full.
Right? So players play way longer. Same thing with actual persistence games. But then there's other games where people are in and out real quickly. Yeah. Or then from a loyalty perspective, players that when you think about, you have a persistence game, which is actual persistence. So something's going to happen once you get to that event. There's almost no loyalty to those games. Why? Because people only play when it's at a positive state.
Sure. Like a progressive they're chasing or something.
No, not progressive. So I'm trying to think. I only want to stay in the world of Light and Wonder, but I don't know what Light and Wonder persistence games there are.
Hit them out there. Shoot me a different one.
Like Cash Falls. You guys have Cash Falls?
We have it. We know what it is. Not ours, but
it's not yours.
You can talk about it.
No, it is. Cash Falls is your guys. Oh, okay. So Cash Falls is an actual persistence game. And when you go to the game, there's a positive EV potentially for a player, right? Where if you play the game at that moment, you will actually make money in the long run from a mathematical basis. So the problem with that is that most players try to find only when it's at a positive state.
Yep.
But when it's like, say Landon played, he hit that bonus, all that actual persistence is gone, people are going to walk by for a long time.
Yeah.
Right, so that's why the loyalty to those types of games are not high. But then, like hold and spin, right? These are your
for sure.
Bonkers, right? Huff and more puff. You guys can't sell enough of them, right? Well, hold and spin has a ton of loyalty. So anyway, for like fun fact is like there is a ton of loyalty to certain game mechanics. The funny thing is we know that.
Yeah.
The manufacturers don't.
Well, they do now.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, we get that info. It's even like a must hit buy, right? Once the must hit buy gets to 100 within, I mean, people are waiting in line to get.
Can't imagine the fights that happen for that. Right?
Yeah.
So what sets you apart then in the slot data analytics portion of your business? Because it's a pretty crowded space, I would say.
So two things. One is, we have many years of development in software. Our mapping functionality, data visualizations, we had a bigger head start than anyone else because we built it in our table product many years ago. We include patron data and understand their patron behavior, which is very difficult for operators to actually look at the behavior of the customer. So we take in a lot of their ratings data. I would say what sets us apart from anyone is that all of our client-facing folks were operators.
Yep.
Right. So we are not a company that says, hey, here's a great tool, and it is great, and our developers and whatnot are amazing. You get an account manager that was a director of operations that works with you. So tools are great, but they're only as good as when they're used.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter if you have the greatest software in the world if you don't never use it. So part of our business model has always been, you get a guy or you get a gal.
Yeah, right.
And that guy or gal, incentives are aligned. So, we want you to be that trusted partner. We want to provide opportunities, but you're hearing it from someone that's walked in your shoes.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody you could trust. Right? You don't need a tech person or a real smart person or, some of these analysts, it's a different language that you're hearing, right? You need someone that's been on that road. And, we have a bunch of folks, all the folks that deal with our clients, all were in ops.
Yeah.
And for us, that sets us apart because, you could, a lot of the companies could provide similar results. But for us, a couple of things is, one is it's not just a tool. We have a recommendation engine. Right. So what I learned as an operator is I could stare at reports until my eyes get crossed, which they did. I just need answers. I'm not an analyst, right? I'm a VP of operations. I don't need to spend 10 hours staring at a spreadsheet. Just give me the answer. So both in our table and slot product, we've always given the answer. From a slot perspective, we've also tracked every change that's made. Table games, there's not a lot of changes from a game experience. Right? You're not moving your EUTH and your Mississippi stud and all over the place. Once you find your plan, you're testing it, whatever.
Yeah.
Slots, go to a casino on a Tuesday morning. There's many banks that
they're moving them, installing them. Yeah, you name
so
it.
part of our software, we actually track every change, and we quantify if it was a good or bad decision. So I think of it as like an executive dashboard.
Can't wait to get that batting average. So you made all these moves. None of them made sense. Yeah.
Well, it's all about the ROI, right?
Sure. No, I get it.
And that's the thing is, like, if you don't provide that, then it's all like, it's a cool toy, but am I really making money?
We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, this guy with the family and gaming, I want to hear his gambling story. You ready for that, or you got anything else queued up?
Yeah, we're right there.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you. So we always, I'm sure you're familiar. So we always ask for a fun gambling story. It doesn't have to be $1 million winner, but in your storied gambling career, does anything jump out at you going, oh, this is a story I got to tell the guys?
We don't have enough time for all the gambling stories.
Just give me one. Just give me one.
All right.
Try to narrow it down.
We'll pick horse racing.
Okay. Perfect.
Is that okay?
Yeah. There's no rule against it.
All right. So I grew up at the tracks, right? Learned how to read a racing form first. As I grew up, you always heard about that ticket that someone won, and they won tons of money on small bets.
Sure.
And you're like, that's never going to happen to me. Or the guy that picked the wrong horse, but yet it won, and they won all this
long
money.
shot
winner. I'm never stupid enough for that to ever happen. Right. I'm a smart guy. So it's funny. About, I would say 9 years ago, so I worked at Parks outside of Philly. My wife would, let me go play once in a while. So I went to Harrah's, Philadelphia, and I grew up playing poker, mainly like horses poker. Then I learned tables and slots and all that stuff to gamble. So I went to play poker and got pretty lucky. Won like $600-700, and was playing some horses. Then wasn't so lucky, and I had a $180 voucher left. But then I went and played some blackjack. I won like $500 or $600 playing blackjack, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I got $1,200 in profit.
Sure.
And, kids can get a new pair of shoes, right? It's
good,
right?
Yeah.
But I have this like $180 voucher that's kind of like burning a hole in my pocket.
Naturally.
Like, so it's either I'm not cashing it out. I'm winning.
Yeah, we'll throw it in on something, yeah.
So it's like 10 p.m. in the East Coast. There's no real horse racing happening at 10 p.m. in the East Coast on a Tuesday night.
Yeah, right.
But there was one track, Northfield Park, which is a harness track, home of the flying turns, right? I never, and I
could not find it on a map if you told me to, but that's good, yeah.
Today they're a big slot house, 2,200 slots.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. But I never was the kind of guy that would make a bet unless I read the racing form, right? Like for us horse players, the racing form's the Bible,
like
right? Like it's your thing. You're a sucker if you bet without handicap.
Sure.
But I had a good night, and that 180 was burning a hole in my pocket. So I looked up at the board, and I'm like, all right, the 3 is 2-5, and big favorite. And then I was like, I'll just bet some gimmicks, exactas and trifectas, and just blow the 180 and whatever happens. So I bet a $50 exacta, 3 with 1-2. The 1 and 2 were like the second, what I thought was the second and third choice. So that's $100 right there. And then I bet a $10 trifecta, like 3 with 1-2 with 1, 2, 5, 9, and that's like $80. So my $80 is gone, and I'm like, all right, whatever happens. If I lose, I'm still up $1,200. If I win, great. It's something else. So the race goes off, right? And harness racing. Horses tend to run true to form. So anyway, the horses leave the gate, so to call, and it's 4, 1, 2, 5, 9 that kind of leave the gate and take the lead. The 4's in the lead, 1, 2, 5, 9, and I'm like, 4? I'm like, well, I thought the 3 was 2 to 5. So the way that horse racing works is they won't show during the race, they'll show the order of the horses in the current running, and then they'll also show the odds. And that usually takes about 10 or 15 seconds until they populate the first kind of view. And the 4 comes up as like 2 to 5. And I'm like, wait a second, I bet the 3 was 2 to 5. There can't be 2 to 5
twice.
Horses,
right.
So it's 4, 1, 2, 5, 9, all the way across the track. So harness racing, half-mile tracks, they go around twice.
Yep.
So I'll go around the first time, go around the second turn, 4, 1, 2, 5, 9. I'm like, oh, this was a big waste of $180. I'm like, what happened to 3? 3 is dead last.
Yeah, 3 forgot his lunch.
Right,
He's in the back of the room.
I'm like, my God. Like, a guy the size of me was riding the horse, right? And I'm like, what the hell? I guess, what happened? So they go around the third turn, still 4, 1, 2, 5, 9. I'm like, oh, beat myself up. Maybe I picked the wrong number. So from the back, the 3 pulls, and he's like 6 and 7 wide around the last turn. And the way that they show the numbers and the odds, when things change at the last minute, they're not going to update that. There's just not enough time for a person to like
type it all in.
Type it, right? So short story long, the 3 wins the race, and there is a blanket finish between the 1, 2, and 4. So a couple things is, one is I'm pretty good. I have a good racing eye. I've been around it my whole life. I could usually tell a photo finish. I had no clue, right, between the 1, 2, and 4 for second, third, and fourth. Clearly the 3 won. But because they didn't show the odds, I'm like, well, was it another 2 to 5 shot? Even though I'm like, there's no way there's 2 2 to 5s in a race.
Sure.
So longest photo finish in history, 62 seconds. For a horse player, that's 62 years.
That's eternity, yeah.
That's ever, right? But now I'm like, well, what was the odds on the 3? So about 30 seconds into that 62, the 3 pops up as the winner. And, it still says photo finish. He was 90 to 1.
No.
And you put 50
way.
on it.
I had a $50 exacta, 3 with 1 2. So I had a 3-1 or 3-2 exacta, and then I had 3 with 1 2 with 1 2 5 9 for trifectas. If you guys know what that stuff is,
roughly. I'm not enough to eat.
Order of 2, order of 3. Right?
Yeah, right.
But the 4, 2, and 1 were in a photo finish for second and third. I could get nothing if the 4 finishes second, right? So if the 4 finishes second, those $180 is a loser, and it's going to be a really terrible story, right?
Yeah,
I picked wrong, but I still lost.
So I assume that's not where we're going here. Yeah.
So after 62 seconds, I felt like 62 years. The results came up like 3-1-2 or 3-2-1.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm like, what is happening? So I got $5,000 for the exacta, and $5,000 for the trifecta. So I went from making a mistake to 10,000 cash. I went home and I just made it rain.
My favorite part of the story is at the beginning because my wife lets me gamble from time to time. And I was going to ask if you went and told your wife that you
I threw it on the bed.
This is how we got the next round permission.
Yeah, that's right.
Or a big stack on the bed. You're good.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
You want to kick it off with the challenge?
You got this one.
All right.
All right.
Well, as we do, we like for you to throw a challenge out to someone. So whoever you think we should interview or be interesting on our podcast, you get to challenge them. And just know that when you challenge them, they're going to get about 10 text messages being like, you've been challenged.
You're coming on.
To be on the podcast. Dun, dun, dun.
Operator, I guess, makes the most sense.
Yeah, hit us with an operator. We like operators.
That'd be good.
On the
and we can do it on TV, so they don't have to fly here. If they're here, great. But if they're in Florida or wherever, it's fine too. So,
Greg Carlin, ex-CEO of Rush Street Gaming.
Cool.
Perfect.
He'll have a lot of stories. Super smart, dear friend. Started another business after leaving Rush Street. I think.
What's he doing now?
He just started. I don't think it's public on what he's doing, but he's he left Rush Street as their CEO and getting back into his space.
That'd be an awesome one.
He's cool. Yeah. I met him once with LG. Knows him.
Wharton grad, but loves gambling. Right, has more W2Ts cash than you could think of playing video poker.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so
perfect. You're ready for
kind of like a different personality, Derek Stearns, but a leader in our industry that truly loves gaming.
Sweet.
Which
we love
those are the best kind.
Yeah,
the gaming leaders that love gaming. Because there's a few that don't.
Many that don't.
Yeah. Well, dude,
Stop
thank
being
you.
politically correct.
Thank you for making time. This is fun.
You.
Yeah. Good chopping it up, sharing stories. And what's your website? Tangam.com. Is it that easy?
Yeah, Tangam Gaming, Tangam Systems. Either one will take you there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Right on. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.